What's going on YouTube? West Hobbies RC. So today we're back with some airplane content. We haven't posted really any airplane builds or modifications in a while. I had another airplane project lined up I want to start a build series on. It's a kit, but for right now, I just picked this up yesterday at a swap meet. I cannot remember the gentleman's name who I purchased the airplane from, but thank you for this awesome deal on a Great Plains Big Stik 120. So this is a Great Plains Big Stik 120. You can tell it is huge, 80 some odd inch wingspan. We have the wings down here. They at least come apart, which is nice, but it's not to my liking. So you know me, I can't leave nothing alone, and I don't like tricycle gear, and I don't like upright engines. We got an incredible deal on this thing, and I've been wanting another Big Stik. I had one, I sold it like a dum-dum, and I've been wanting another one, so I was super happy to find this one. And it is incredible, incredible condition. I honestly don't think it's ever been flown, or maybe flown a couple times, I don't know, but in fantastic condition. So, what are we gonna do to this thing? Number one thing, we have a Sato 180 on this. This engine is massive. This is a big, big engine. It's in great condition. We're going to test start it. We're going to see if it runs, which I'm sure it will. It turns over great. But I want to mount this engine sideways because I don't like upright engines. So we're going to take the weights off. We're going to pull the engine. We're going to mount it sideways, run the exhaust out the bottom. We are going to take the tricycle gear off, and we are going to convert it into a tail dragger. So we're going to move the main gear forward, and we are going to replace all of the servos. We got some Tower Pros on there. Personally, not a fan of those servos. I've never really used them, but I don't like them. I've not had good experiences with them through other people. So we got a 148 on the throttle and Tower Pro on everything else. So we're going to replace all that. We're going to have to move the throttle anyways when we move the engine, and the steering nose wheels going out, and we'll tie that to the rudder. So we're going to set up a time lapse, and we are going to start pulling this thing apart. Let's get the gear out of it. Let's get the servos out of the fuselage. Let's get the engine off. Let's get that mounted, and let's start getting some work done. We just start disassembling the airplane here, pulling the spinner, prop nut, jam nut, back plate loose, and just start disassembling all the screws. So now the bolts going through the firewall were put in with red Loctite, ended up stripping a couple of the blind nuts in the wood before I realized that they were. So we got them apart, heated them up, cut them off, and now reassembling the motor back on here sideways. I really wish I would have realized the carburetor was the other way around, which would have made life so much easier, but we ended up getting it done. We got the engine pulled off, mounted it sideways. I ended up having to cut this bolt out here, so we're gonna have to put a new blind nut and new bolt in, but we got the other three in. So we'll go ahead and get that done. We're gonna have to re-drill the firewall for the new throttle linkage because the throttle linkage used to come out over here. So now we have to move it over here. We'll do a flex cable so it can go down, around, wrap in, and wrap over to. We're going to use this Tower Pro that was for the steering. We're going to use this as the throttle. We'll turn the arm around, run a new little flex linkage, put a couple braces in. So now we need to flip the airplane over, and first thing we need to do is get this tray out. So we got to finish getting that tray out because we need to get these gear off. Now if you notice, I already got the front gear off, the nose wheel, but you can notice there is still a bolt there and a bolt there. And that's because they were used red Loctite when putting this together, and the blind nuts are spinning. I heated them up the best I could, got the two out, so I'll just end up cutting these off, pop the blind nuts out. We don't need these anymore. And I got 3 of the 4 landing gear bolts out. So, of course, same thing, there's blind nuts spinning. We'll cut that bolt off. We don't need any of this anymore. We're gonna pull this tray out. We'll make a new piece of plywood to grab each side of the fuselage. We'll triangular stock it up. I'll go over that when we're doing it. And we're going to move the gear to about right here. So we're going to put the wheels about right at the leading edge of the wing. If you're converting a stick to a tail dragger, I've done a couple of them. This is where I found the gear to be the best, right at the leading edge of the wing. So we'll put the gear here, put the plywood in. We might move them back just a tiny bit so we can get a good plywood access, but we'll get to that. And then for the rudder, we're going to cut the rudder off, cut the hinges, and we will drill through, and we will figure out a tail wheel bracket. I'll look through my little collection, see what I got, and we'll put a tail wheel bracket down there, run it up, bend it over into the rudder so we have steerable tail wheel. Replacing these Tower Pro servos with some high-tech 645 metal gears. That'll move that forward. We're going to probably replace the fuel lines when the hobby shop's open. I can get some new fuel line. We'll put a little clamp here for the vent. That was like what was here. Exhaust is just going to stay here, and we're going to get this thing a quick little project, something for the airplane guys. I know I haven't done nothing airplane in a while. So let's get to cutting these bolts off, and let's get to moving the gear forward. So we got the bolt cut off of the landing gear, and we got the other 2 bolts cut off for the front nose wheel mount. Now I went ahead and pulled this receiver battery tray out that was in there, and if you notice here, we got some L brackets. Now this is factory from Great Plains. Went ahead, pulled the throttle servo that was in here out. Like I said, we're going to leave the Tower Pro that was on the steering. That is going to be throttle. So we'll just run the arm this way, run a new throttle line, come up over here, drill a new hole. Bam, we'll have our throttle hooked up. We're good to go. But one thing I like is I don't have to drill to mount the gear forward. Great Plains, when they built this aircraft, they thought about this. They knew people would want a tail dragger. So they made it to where you literally just bolt the gear right here. Makes life so much easier. I still have to figure out a tail wheel because I did not get the tail wheel. I looked through the manual. I downloaded the manual, looked through it, and they did include a tail wheel as well if you wanted to do tail wheel or nose wheel, like tricycle or tail dragger. I didn't get a tail wheel. That's not a problem. We can figure out a tail wheel. That's easy. So mounting the landing gear just got easier. So now we can roll this big thing over here. And we can feel for the holes. There's one here, here, and here. We're going to poke those out. And you can actually see them right there. There, and there. And let's get the gear mounted here. So we got the landing gear moved forward. We got it all bolted up. Loctited, blue Loctite, not red, with lock washers. That's all you need. But landing gear are moved forward. So now I have these 6-inch inflatables. Stole them from Grandpa. He bought them many years ago. Never used them. But I think they would look good. They might be a little big, but they would go after that bush look that I want. So I'm going to drill these hubs out to fit, pull this apart, get these wheels tossed on. Also, there was weight added to the nose, so with the landing gear being moved forward, a little bit heavier tires should help with balance, and I shouldn't have to add any extra weight. So we're going to get these tossed on, and then I was looking through tail wheels that I have, and this one might work, or I might just bend up my own. I don't know. But let's get the wheels on, and let's continue. Got quite a bit of work done. Went ahead, got the gear on. We've already went through that. I went ahead and put the 6-inch inflatable tires on. Nice and squishy. They're about 2.5-ish, 3 PSI. Double wheel collared, flat spotted, just so they would never come off. We got one on the other side. We went ahead and got the throttle ran the sleeve, drilled it, ended up flipping this horn and flipping the quick connect to the bottom, so we got that done. Had to drill through 2 bulkheads, run it down, up and around through here, run it to the servo on that side with another quick connect for adjuster. We got the receiver mounted. Again, we're running the AR 8020T. Antennas out each side, went through little tubings, glued that down, so one antenna runs this way, one antenna runs up over here and this way, runs out over here, so the antennas are opposite of each other and out of the way. Of course, this is just my little test pack that I keep for testing all my airplane stuff. Went ahead, got the bottom hatch on, that's all done up, got the muffler tightened up, that's done. Went ahead and mounted the vent line, all the fuel lines are done, got it binded to my radio, got a high-tech 645 metal gear on the elevator, got all that set up and working. So now we have all of this tightened up here, everything, throttle, idle, full. We have a perfect linear throttle. A little tip when you are setting up throttle on an aircraft and or helicopter, nitro, does not matter. So you are going to want to have it where it's perfectly linear. So your servo horn is going to be 90, and you want your throttle or your clevis on your carburetor to be 90. So 90 degrees and 90 degrees. That way it moves together. So even on a helicopter, you set your helicopter up the same way. You're going to get the perfect linear throw. Airplanes, you set up the same way.
5 minutes.
So we have perfect linear throttle throughout. And then we went ahead and got our elevator set. We got some nice throws on the elevator. We got some nice maxed out throws on the rudder. And then we are going to wire the wing independently. Now in the radio, I have already set it up for 2 aileron servos, 2 flap servos. So we're gonna have 4 leads coming out. The reason we went with the 8-channel. I want to give a big thank you and shout out to Jeff Mayo for sending me this receiver. I greatly appreciate it, bud. I was going to use it in the 337 build that we have coming up on the channel, but I need a 10-channel for that, for everything I want to do. So the 8-channel goes in the Big Stik. So we are going to use all 8 channels, and then, well, maybe not all 8, but we have the option for them. And then I would like to put some kind of plywood gussets or something to help strengthen this wing block, because we're going to be flying this thing not like you normally would see a stick fly. So hopefully I don't want to rip the wing off. We got our switch working with battery indicator light. So now we're going to keep trucking forward. I'm going to go ahead and make up a bunch of extensions, because I'm going to need 4 for the receiver to go up into the wing, so that way we can plug everything up. I'm going to get 4 extensions made and then start programming the receiver. I just got to final mount the battery, but we are almost finished up with this. Oh, the most important thing, which is actually the next step, making a tail wheel. So we're going to make one. That's the next step. Let's get to making it. So we went ahead and made up a couple extensions. These are just extras. Those are going out. I made up 4 to go from the receiver to the wing. Got 1 wing half bolted on here. This thing is massive, 80 some odd inch wingspan. It's a big stick. So we went ahead, we got the rudder cut off so we could do the tail wheel. We drilled the hole all the way down. I'm going to go to the hobby shop and see if I can find a tail wheel bracket assembly. If not, we'll bend up our own. But so we got the rudder cut off, got it down there, got the radio out. I have been setting up the ailerons. So we have aileron, right, left, and then we have flaps set up.
Take off flaps.
Take off flaps. And flaps up.
Flaps up.
We have full.
Landing flaps.
Full span flaps. Still work as ailerons. Flaps up. And then we have
full span ailerons.
Full span ailerons. And then regular ailerons. So we got a couple more mixes to do. And get a tail wheel bracket. We'll get this thing ready to do the first fire up. We'll see how she runs with the engine mounted sideways. It is looking good. I'm probably going to polish that spinner up just to make it look nice and shiny. But I cleaned the wing up, gave it a coat of wax. It looks nice and shiny. Hit it with a heat gun and tighten the covering up, and this thing should be ready to fly. So we went to the hobby shop and we picked up a Dubro tail wheel bracket for large scale aircraft. Part number if anybody needs it. So this basically gives you your bracket, no screws, couple washers, and this pre-bent up piece of wire. Problem is, this wire is not long enough to reach all the way through and go into the actual bottom half of the rotor, so we didn't use this wire. We grabbed a piece of 32nd, I think, piano wire I had, and we bent up our own bracket. So we silver soldered a washer here. We got a wheel collar down here. This stops the tail wheel from moving up and down, so when you land, it can't move down, and when you take off, it can't fall out. Silver soldered another washer here and another washer here. So you can use wheel collars, but silver solder works. If you ever have to change the tail wheel, you just unsolder it, pull the washer off. So we used a Sullivan 1 1/4 inch tail wheel, a nice aluminum hub rubber wheel, and then we bent the wire to come out here. So now we will slot the rudder itself to accept this wire, and then when we turn the rudder, it will turn the tail wheel. So very, very simple. So we have the rudder cut off here, so we're going to rehinge the rudder, drill a spot for the bracket to go through using our Great Plains slot machine. This thing makes slotting control surfaces so nice. It literally, you just push it, slot it, you're good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and get that plugged in. Go ahead and slot the rudder and the stab itself, get some hinges cut, and we'll get back to getting the rudder attached. And then the landing gear tail section is done. We have to cover up these 4 holes here, so we'll cut a piece of red just to cover that up. We inflated the tires so they're nice and still squishy, but a little bit more inflated. Vent lines ran, all that stuff. We are going to polish the spinner just to make it look nice for the heck of it. But we are almost done with the Great Plains Big Stik 120 converted to a tail dragger, and we are almost ready to fly. All right, so we pretty much got this thing wrapped up. We got everything wired. We got just the battery wire laying loose. Velcro, we CG'd it already. It took 17 ounces of lead in the nose of this airplane. So now I know a lot of you guys are going to think that's a lot of weight. It is, but you got to remember, you have a very short nose. Now, we could have spaced this engine even farther out. It would have kind of looked stupid. We could have made blocks, whatever. It is what it is. If you want to fly an airplane, you got to balance it, especially big airplanes. When you have a CG that's about here, then you have all this tail momentum out there. You have a lot of weight hanging behind. So it's going to take a lot of weight up front to balance it out. I see this all the time. People complain about having to add lead. you do what you got to do. If you have to add lead, you add lead. It is what it is. I mean, you want to fly the airplane, you got to have the weight. I don't personally care. I'd rather have a balanced airplane. So that's beside the point. So we went ahead and we got the rudder hinged back up. The tail wheel is all done. It works like it should. So now let's bolt the wing on this thing and let's go run it and see how she runs. There she run up. Looks good with them tires on it too. There we go. We went ahead, we ran the airplane, we got it all tuned up. It's running great. That engine is running fantastic. I am super happy with it. Something I did forget to touch on, I went ahead and did a quick polish on the spinner just to make it look nice and shiny. A little dirty now, but you can see reflections in it. So it is running. We got it tuned up. The only thing I want to do is add an extension. So I guess the original owner flipped the carburetor over. I didn't even think about this when I mounted the engine. It would have made life so much easier if the carburetor was the other way around, because then the throttle would have been more of a direct run instead of running high through the bulkheads down and up and in. Whatever, it is what it is. Push rod, I'm not changing it. So you just have to reach under here. So I'll just bend up a rod that comes down so I can reach under and tune the engine. But it's pretty much tuned, low end, high end. It's running great. So I'm going to end this video off here. This was a quick little one series video. Rebuilding, rebirthing the Great Plains Big Stik. I'm going to say, by how much weight it took in the nose of this airplane, it was never fun. So we should have a true maiden flight. We put some air in the tires. We inflated them up a little bit. They look really good. I'm really happy I went with the 6-inch and not the 4.5 that I was going to go with. So they look good with the wings on. It balances out. Everything works like it should. We have all kinds of great mixing. Again, we went with the high-tech 645 MG on the elevator. We still got the Tower Pro on the rotor. We'll see how it is. I've never used them servos before, so we might end up changing them out. Who knows? But we are ready to fly, so I'm going to end this video off here. I want to thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked the video, give it a like, subscribe, take care, and have a great day. And let's look forward to the flight video.